Have you ever felt your future slipping away? Not because you weren't smart enough, but because the words just wouldn't come. Have you ever stayed silent in a moment that could have changed your life, and then punished yourself for it, over and over again? This is not just a story about English. This is about the moment everything collapsed, and the silent realization that you weren't just unprepared, you were unspoken. People think losing a job is the failure, but the real pain is watching the door close and realizing you had the key the whole time. You just never learned how to use it. In this video, I'm not going to give you tips. I'm going to walk with you into the memory that still haunts you. We'll go back to the moment you froze. We'll face the shame, and then, step by step, we'll transform that failure into something unbreakable, a new identity. Because what if the job wasn't really the lesson? What if the real reason it happened was to wake up the part of you that's still hiding? If you've ever felt that pain of missing out, of being invisible, of not trusting your own voice, then this video is yours. Stay with me, because by the end you won't just understand English better, you'll understand yourself in a way that changes everything. He thought he was ready. He'd studied, worked hard, followed every rule. But when the moment came, the interview, the question, the chance, everything inside him collapsed, not because he didn't know the answer, but because it was in English, and his mouth refused to move. The words were trapped behind years of self-doubt, and all he could do was smile awkwardly. He walked out of the building not as a candidate, but as a question mark, the kind that burns in your chest. The world around him moved normally. Cars passed, people talked, life went on. But inside him something had shattered. He didn't just lose an opportunity, he lost a part of himself he never got to show. And that's what hurt the most, not the rejection, but the silence. The version of himself who could have spoken fluently, clearly, confidently, never got a chance to exist. It wasn't about grammar, it was about identity. Who am I? He whispered to himself. If I can't say what I feel. That night, he stared at the ceiling. No tears, just stillness. A strange mix of shame and awakening. He thought of all the moments he stayed quiet, all the meetings he avoided, all the dreams he postponed, and slowly a sentence formed. One he had never allowed himself to say. I deserve to express myself. He said it out loud. It felt shaky, but real. The next morning, he opened a notebook, not to study rules, not to memorize lists, but to write one emotion, in English, just one. He wrote, I feel small. Then he stared at it. And he realized this wasn't just about English. It was about facing the parts of himself he had hidden behind excuses. He stopped trying to be fluent and started trying to be honest, one line at a time. I don't want to lose courage again. I want to feel proud when I speak. I'm tired of being afraid. These weren't perfect sentences, but they were real. And real English is the kind that comes from your chest, not your textbook. He didn't feel motivated. He felt regretful. But that regret became his fuel. Just 5 minutes a day, that was his rule. No matter his mood, no matter how tired he felt, no matter if the day had been kind or cruel, 5 minutes, reading out loud, whispering sentences, watching his voice return, piece by piece. He began again, not because he believed in himself yet, but because he had nothing left to lose. And in a strange way, that was freedom. The job he lost would never come back. But maybe, just maybe, a stronger version of himself could. And that's how the door, the one he never opened, slowly began to unlock. If you want to fail again, do exactly what most learners do. Translate everything in your head. Keep hearing a question, then panicking while searching for the perfect sentence in your native language. Let your brain become a courtroom where every word must be judged before it's spoken. That's how you freeze. That's how you watch golden moments slip through your fingers because you didn't trust your instinct to speak. If you want to lose more than just English, keep hesitating. And if you want regret to become your shadow, only study. Don't speak. Fill notebooks with vocabulary, but never use them. Watch videos, take notes, feel smart. But when someone asks, "How's your English?" Just smile and say, "I'm still learning." Never speak out loud. Never make your mouth practice the very thing you're trying to master. And when the next opportunity knocks, let it walk away while you prepare in silence for a future that never comes. Want to feel powerless again during an important moment? Avoid real conversations. Tell yourself you're not ready. Say you'll speak when you're fluent, not realizing that speaking is how fluency is born. Wait for the perfect day, the perfect sentence, the perfect version of yourself. Spoiler, that version doesn't exist. The people who grow speak through the discomfort, one awkward sentence at a time. If you truly want to stay stuck, repeat this belief every day. My English is bad. Say it like a prayer. Whisper it in every mirror. Let it define you. Let it shrink your courage. But if you're tired of that old story, here's a better line. I'm rebuilding. Because no one respects a perfect speaker. They respect someone who keeps showing up, even when their voice shakes. Your fluency is not in the words you don't know. It's in the words you're afraid to say. Example, look at an object around you right now. A pen, a shoe, your phone. Don't describe it in your language. Just say, "This is my phone. It's black. I use it every day." That's English. That's speaking. That's how you train your brain to think in the language of progress. Now speak, right now, out loud, one sentence. Don't think, speak. Say, "I want to learn faster," or "I am not afraid of mistakes." Your accent doesn't matter. Your grammar doesn't matter. What matters is that your voice hears itself. Repetition is respect, and your voice deserves to be respected, especially by you. Still waiting for a sign to begin? Ask one real question in English today. Doesn't matter how simple. How are you? What's your name? Where are you from? If you make a mistake, perfect. That means you're in motion. That means you've stopped watching English and started becoming it. And if none of this hit you yet, here's the final truth. The worst English mistake is not saying the wrong word. It's saying nothing at all. The job, the connection, the respect, all lost. Not because you didn't know, but because you didn't try. And if you don't change the way you show up now, the next opportunity will walk away just like the last one did. He sat in front of the panel, heart pounding, suit perfectly ironed, answers rehearsed. This was his moment, the promotion he had dreamed of for 3 years. They smiled politely and began the interview. In English, he understood every word, every question. But when it was his turn to speak, the words vanished. His mouth opened, but his confidence closed. Silence answered for him. As he walked home that night, the city lights blurred into questions. Why did I freeze? Why didn't I practice more? Why didn't I prepare for this moment like my life depended on it? On the bus, he stared at the window, replaying the interview like a broken record. Every sentence he wished he'd said echoed louder than the noise outside. That's how regret sounds, not like pain, but like missed expression. When he got home, he opened his notebook, not to take notes, but to record the sentence that hurt the most. I have led many successful projects. That's what he had wanted to say. But his fear spoke louder than his fluency, so he whispered it now, out loud, again and again, until the fear began to shrink, until his voice began to return. The next day, he made a plan, simple, raw, humble. Every day for 30 days, he would read aloud from a graded reader, slowly, clearly, even if it felt like chewing glass. No skipping, no excuses, just 1 page a day. He didn't do it to sound smart. He did it to stop feeling ashamed. Discipline became his redemption. Day by day, something shifted. He stopped translating in his head. He started hearing the rhythm of the language. He noticed his tongue moved faster. His tone became smoother. He even began to enjoy the stories. English was no longer a stranger. It became a tool he was sharpening, 1 line at a time. 2 months passed. Then the email arrived. We'd like to schedule another interview. A different company. A new opportunity. He stared at the screen. And this time, he didn't feel panic. He felt readiness, not perfection, but preparation. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and said the sentence that once betrayed him, "I have led many successful projects." This time, it didn't hurt. In the new interview, he didn't try to sound perfect. He tried to sound present. He spoke with pauses. He smiled. He even corrected himself and didn't apologize. Because now, he knew fluency isn't about having no fear. It's about speaking anyway. That day, he got the job. But more importantly, he got himself back. He didn't become fluent from motivation. He became fluent from failure, from that bitter moment on the bus, from the sentence that refused to be spoken. And now, whenever someone says, "You speak English so well," he smiles and thinks, "You have no idea how much regret I had to burn just to light this voice." Regret is not your enemy. It's your compass. It shows you the places inside you that are still alive, the dreams you haven't buried yet. When someone says, "I have no regrets," they're not strong. They're numb. Because to regret something means your soul remembers what it wanted. And most of the time, it's not about English, it's about everything English represents. Voice, value, freedom, identity. Regret is always a formula. Desire minus courage. You wanted something, but fear made you step back. And that step back became a story your mind replays over and over, not to torture you, but to teach you. Your brain is saying this mattered to you, this was your moment, and you weren't ready. The good news? That emotional replay can become fuel if you choose to act. Here's how your brain works. When you experience failure, it stores the memory in two parts, the event itself and the emotional impact. But when you keep replaying it without action, the emotion becomes heavier than the memory. That's why people say things like, "I'm terrible at English," even if they've only failed once. Shame magnifies the moment. It makes a small crack feel like a broken identity. The key to healing that memory is to interrupt the loop. When your brain brings back the regret, respond with action, even something small. Say the sentence you couldn't say back then. Record it, whisper it, claim it. Tell your brain, "I'm not frozen anymore, I'm in motion." Because speaking, even one line, breaks the emotional pattern. Your memory of failure is not accurate. It's emotional. Your brain exaggerates the mistake to protect you, but it ends up protecting you from growth. So here's what you do. Describe the event again, but like a journalist. They asked me a question. I didn't respond well. I got nervous. The interview ended. No judgment, no shame, just facts. This rewires the emotional weight of the memory. Now pair that memory with new action. This is what neuroscientists call reconsolidation. When you re-experience the past, then do something different, your brain updates the meaning. So ask yourself, what sentence did I need to say back then? Now say it, slowly, clearly. This is how you become the version of yourself who speaks, not freezes. Try this. Open your mouth and say, "I wasn't ready then, but I'm rebuilding now." That's not just a sentence. That's a new identity forming. That's your brain rewiring. That's your body remembering. My voice belongs to me. Regret doesn't have to haunt you. It can guide you straight into the life you were always meant to claim. And the deeper truth is this: every time you regret something you didn't say in English, you're not just regretting the words. You're regretting the person you didn't allow yourself to become. And the good news is, that person is still inside you, waiting, listening, hoping you'll open your mouth and give them a second chance. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Something dies inside you when you lose an opportunity because of English. Not just the dream, but the version of you that thought effort alone was enough. You sit in silence, trying to understand what happened, but the truth is it wasn't just the job that ended. It was a version of yourself, the one that avoided discomfort, the one that waited, the one that thought, maybe someday. That version died, and that's a beginning. You didn't cry because you're weak. You cried because you cared. That pain you felt, it was proof of how deeply you wanted something more. And even though your voice failed, your soul didn't. Pain isn't weakness. Pain is potential asking to be used. That's why it hurts so much, not because you're broken, but because a powerful version of you is trying to be born. And this is where everything changes. English stops being a school subject. It becomes a mirror, a challenge, a calling. You start to realize fluency isn't just a language goal, it's an emotional rebirth. When you speak, you're not just forming sentences, you're reclaiming your right to be seen, to be heard, to exist without apology. Start simple. One phrase connected to your goal. If you lost a job, learn how to say, "I'm applying for this position." If you missed a conversation, learn, "Can I ask you something?" These aren't phrases. They're tools for rebuilding your life. Every word you learn with purpose becomes a brick in the new identity you're creating. The most powerful thing you can do now is keep going while still hurting, because healing is not the absence of pain, it's movement through it. Let your pain become your teacher, not your excuse. And the smallest daily effort, 5 minutes, one phrase, one attempt, is how you prove to yourself that you're still in the game. Fluency isn't a goal you reach. It's a person you become. Someone who didn't give up, someone who turned shame into discipline, someone who speaks even when the voice shakes. That's what English gives you if you let it. Not just words, but evolution. Now imagine this. A year from now, you're in another room, another interview, another version of life, and this time you speak. Not perfectly, but freely. Not because you're confident, but because you've practiced despite fear. That's the future you're building. That's the identity being born right now, in this moment. So here's the question you must whisper every morning. Am I willing to become someone new? Because your voice won't return on its own. You must call it back, sentence by sentence, breath by breath. And when you do, you won't just speak English, you'll speak as someone reborn. The brain doesn't remember what's easy, it remembers what burns. That's why you forget the grammar lesson, but never the moment you froze in front of your boss. Emotions are not a distraction, they're a learning accelerator. Neuroscientists call it emotional encoding. When a memory is paired with intense feeling, your brain saves it deeper. So yes, the regret you feel right now, that's not a setback, that's fuel. Think of the moment you failed in English, the silence, the shame, the look on someone's face when you couldn't answer. Now take 3 words that belong to that moment. For example, explain, understand, prepare. Say them out loud. Write them. Use them in your own sentence. You're not just learning vocabulary. You're anchoring new identity to old pain. Here's a secret your teachers never told you. Your brain is most flexible right after emotional impact. It's called a neuroplasticity surge. You feel defeated, but your brain is wide open. So instead of scrolling for distraction, use those few minutes. Speak. Shadow a sentence. Read a paragraph. Let your nervous system rebuild instead of retreat. That's how regret becomes transformation. If you anchor stories to your learning, your memory becomes permanent, not because of repetition, but because of meaning. A sentence from a character who failed, then tried again, sticks in your heart. That's why graded readers aren't just helpful, they're psychological tools. They carry you emotionally while training your brain to absorb structure, rhythm, and vocabulary without even realizing it. Learning without emotion is like writing in sand. One wave and it disappears. But when you pair emotion with repetition, the learning carves itself into your identity. That's why you must repeat. 1 minute of shadowing each day, 1 sentence, again and again. Not because it's hard, but because it's how your mouth learns to trust itself. Here's something profound. When you practice while remembering failure, your brain records it as healing. The memory doesn't disappear, it gets overwritten. That's why journaling in English after a bad moment helps. That's why recording yourself after you stutter helps. It's not about fixing the past, it's about replacing the meaning. From "I'm not good enough" to "I'm rebuilding now." Try this. Recall a sentence you couldn't say last time. Say it now, slowly. I need more time. Can you repeat that, please? I'm still learning, but I'll try. These are not just phrases, these are redemption scripts. Every time you speak them, you teach your brain. This voice is no longer afraid. Motivation feels good. But pain, when used with purpose, becomes something stronger. Momentum. And the fastest learners aren't the ones with the best memory. They're the ones who use their emotions as fuel. And now that you understand how this works, you'll never look at failure the same way again. You can see it in their posture, the way someone walks after rebuilding themselves. It's subtle but real. Their shoulders aren't just straighter. Their presence feels different, like someone who's met failure and didn't run. When a person loses something because of English, they don't just learn a language. They learn who they are when everything falls apart, and that changes the way they show up in the world. At first, they speak slowly, carefully. They breathe deeper. They ground their words. They're not performing anymore. They're becoming. You notice how they pause before they answer. Not because they're unsure, but because they've learned the power of calm. That kind of fluency doesn't come from books. It comes from surviving the silence and choosing to speak anyway. One day the fear suddenly breaks. Not with a celebration, not with applause, just a simple moment. Someone asks a question in English, and the answer flows. No panic, no overthinking, just response. That moment feels small, but inside, it's a quiet revolution. The voice that once failed, now leads. And it doesn't ask for permission. Confidence isn't loud, it's steady. You'll see them ordering coffee, answering emails, joining conversations. Not perfectly, but naturally. That's what changes when the fear loses its grip. The brain stops translating, the words stop hiding. And the person who once avoided every English interaction, now they're leaning in. People notice. Quietly, they begin to respect the transformation. Not because the English is flawless, but because the effort is visible. Because they see someone who used to stay silent now showing up, word by word, moment by moment. There's power in that. It's not just fluency, it's earned self-respect. And then something beautiful happens. Life opens again. The same doors that once closed begin to unlock. A job call, a message from someone abroad, an application that gets noticed. It's not magic, it's consequence. When you change how you show up, the world starts responding differently. English stops being your wall. It becomes your bridge. You don't need to wait for life to give you another chance. You apply even if you're still learning. You speak even if your accent shows, because now you're not chasing perfection. You're proving resilience. Every real action you take in English is a signal. I've changed. I'm ready. I'm not the same version of me you rejected. And the best part? You're not just recovering what you lost. You're building something better. A voice that doesn't just pass interviews. It speaks with identity, with ownership. And the very thing that once broke you becomes the reason you'll never be broken the same way again. Why did this happen to me? That question haunted him for weeks. He blamed the language, blamed the system, blamed himself. But slowly, the noise faded, and something deeper began to whisper. Maybe you didn't lose the job because of English. Maybe you lost it because the version of you in that moment wasn't yet strong enough to carry the opportunity. It wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. Life wasn't saying no. It was saying not yet. And once that clicked, the regret shifted. Instead of repeating the failure in his mind, he began repeating a new sentence. This chapter made me stronger. He didn't just speak the words, he lived them, through daily action, through small wins, through slow, deliberate growth. What did I learn? He asked himself one evening. He pressed record on his phone and started speaking, not from a script, not from notes, from the heart. He spoke for 60 seconds about what that failure had taught him: humility, patience, discipline, and the difference between knowing and being ready. When he played it back, he smiled. That voice, it sounded different. Who am I becoming? That became the new question, and the answer wasn't a job title. It wasn't fluent speaker or English master. The answer was someone who speaks with courage, not fear. Someone who no longer hides. Someone who trusts their process, not just the result. And every day he said one line to remind himself, "My voice is enough." He stopped waiting for a perfect moment. He created one, not with a grand speech, but with a quiet decision to record, to read, to speak, to listen every single day. He didn't need applause. He just needed progress. And each action became a vote for his future, a future that didn't depend on flawless English, but on a fearless identity. "What happens next?" he asked one night, staring at the same laptop that once delivered rejection. And the answer wasn't in a video or a book. It was in him. You create what happens next. Not the job, not the interviewer, not the past. You, your effort, your intention, your discipline, your willingness to begin again. That night, he did something symbolic. He recorded a 20-second message, just one sentence. "I failed before, but I've rebuilt myself, and I'm ready now." He saved it, not to post, not to share, just to remind himself that he had chosen a new path, a voice, reborn in pain, now moving forward with purpose. And as he closed the laptop, he knew something that no one could ever take from him again. He wasn't learning English to pass interviews. He was learning English to become the kind of person who never lets fear decide their future again. Now pause and ask yourself this. How many parts of your life stayed small just because your English did? How many conversations you avoided? How many chances you let pass? How many times you told yourself next time, but that next time never came? This video wasn't just about regret. It was about what you're going to do with it now. Because you have two choices. Use this pain to build your fluency, or let it repeat in new situations with new faces and the same silence. And deep down, you know the truth. English isn't just a language. It's your voice. It's your presence in the room. It's your ability to say, "I belong here." So let me ask you, what's one thing you'll do today to speak differently than you did yesterday? What truth will you finally say out loud, even with broken grammar, even with fear? And when will you stop waiting for permission to become who you were always meant to be? Your next opportunity is already on its way. The question is, will you be ready to speak when it arrives? If this story moved something inside you, subscribe to the channel, not just to learn English, but to transform through it. Leave a comment, tell me your story, and turn on notifications so you never miss a chance to grow, speak, and become. Because your redemption doesn't begin with grammar, it begins with courage.